Hello, everybody. It's me, Dank Fart, the pirate poet. Fart is spelled PHART, is an acronym for pretty hot and reasonably talented. I am here bringing an interview series that is in conjunction with the launch of my social media campaign, the Poem, Peace on Earth movement, where it's a challenge campaign where you film yourself performing my hit poem, Seed Bomb of Love, by writing a peace sign on the earth, thus making peace on earth. And it's the Peaceful Mother Lover Challenge. So get yourself out there, be a part of the poem, Peace on Earth movement, making peace on earth. More links and up in the video, comments and all the things that will direct you to how to get engaged. And so these interviews are with cutting edge ideas and some stories and various different aspects of how we can go from seemingly a very abstract, simple practice of writing a peace sign on earth to make peace on earth, and how we can actually then go from there to create higher systems of organization and also understanding our relationship with this planet in a way that creates abundance for all nations, the humanity, also the four-leggeds, the minerals and microbes, like all the nations. So we all got to come and work together in this creation, and that's how we will come up with the solutions for all of these beautiful world to thrive. I am here today with my good friend Magenta Ceiba of the P.O.E.M Network, and we're going to be dropping in about the P.O.E.M Network and all of the incredible work they do and how you can get involved. Sit back and enjoy the journey. All right, can you give us a little bit about the P.O.E.M Network and kind of what it is all about?
Sure. So P.O.E.M is an international community of people. We kind of straddle the real world and the internet world in terms of being a network together. We have local chapters all over the world that host events and make media about regenerative cultures, and do actions about that. So that's kind of, from our perspective with that, bringing together a bunch of different movements that are often kind of operating in their own silos. So kind of bridging things from everything from permaculture and urban farming, that kind of thing, to more equitable economies, to things like restorative justice, which is like a much better method than putting people in prison, to different kinds of preventative health practices that people and communities can do to be healthy with themselves and each other. So regenerative cultures basically being kind of the opposite of extractive industry. So, there are a lot of systems on the planet that are taking a lot more resources than they're putting back in, and we're at a pretty extreme deficit with like ecosystem breakdown and like extreme social inequality. And so regenerative cultures are just like ways of living and being and working together that create more life, are more nourishing, and support more diversity and anti-fragility, so that we can adapt to the changes that are happening and care for each other and the watersheds that we're a part of. And so we really try to encourage local chapters to organize by their local watershed, to connect with nature and place and begin to think of their actions in relation to keeping their waterways clean and cycling in a healthy way.
Oh, cool. For those who might not know what a watershed is, could you give us a brief rundown of what a watershed is?
Sure. It's kind of the like basin in which the waterways close to you flow. So let's see. I used to live in California near the Yuba River, and so we think of the Yuba watershed as the different tributaries and creeks and everything that's connected to the Yuba River. And so if you are, for example, putting something in your backyard, like dumping, just something that we would use under your sink for cleaning, and you just dump it, or depending on what kind of farming practices you're using, sometimes like intense nitrogen runoff with the way that people use fertilizers and stuff can get into waterways, and it causes imbalances and extinction of native fish species. And ultimately, like plastic that ends up on the ground or like blows away from the landfill and gets into the ocean. So all of our watersheds are connected in terms of how they flow across bodies of water and eventually to the ocean. And then also our soil systems are like an integrated part of that. So a lot of our farming methods, for example, have pulled off topsoil. So instead of water being absorbed into the land to support whole ecosystems of microbes and stuff that live under the water, under the soil, that we see, and it's possible to kind of like rebuild your soil ecologies so that you're absorb water that falls, so that you keep a healthy cycle of your groundwater, and you have less runoff pollution and things like that. I mean, that's getting nerdy on that sort of stuff, but yeah, that's like and that's all connected to the atmosphere. Like people think of climate change as like a carbon thing, but ultimately it's like more of a hydrological cycle thing that like a much more complicated cycle of gases and water and like solids and gas and how they interact, that goes across all boundaries of what you could possibly like regulate, really.
Yeah, beyond borders. It really is a borderless nation up there. And it also, I think, probably has a lot to do with one of the reasons why we have our drought issues, because we're not understanding our relationship to our regional waterways and where they flow, which comes back to the watershed, which is essentially, from what I understand, the basic realm of where the water flow, regional water flows, Cool. And so the Bloom Network is now designing their communities around the watersheds to help connect people to their understanding of their local ecological aspects. And how does that tie into community development?
Let's see. Well, I think that's part of encouraging people to develop communities in more integrated ways with their ecologies, but also like as communities, there are a lot of development structures that are oriented around like social impact or venture capital, like where you build businesses to make more jobs that tend to be disconnected from land base and healthy flows, and you get people like commuting from long distances and sort of thing. And then sometimes development practices are also kind of siloed. Sometimes there are policy problems from racial segregation over years that make development and access to resources and well-being not happening in a healthy way. So part of organizing as a watershed is helping people think beyond the colonial structures of kind of regimented grids and the way that our capital structures are set up, and more directly in the real world being accountable to each other, and sharing with each other in regional ways. We think also kind of like bioregional development. Bioregion is another kind of word for kind of an area that is connected to a watershed, and that it integrated all the ways that people are in a region. And if we have more of our kind of governance and resource flows and development kind of rooted in the real world in that way, and localized, more like distributed local manufacturing, this kind of stuff, you'll have more people having a better quality of life and kind of jobs that are more meaningful to them, instead of working for an extractive company where you make very little money compared to kind of the higher ups or something, and you have more autonomy. And that can also potentially reduce a lot of climate change problems too, as well as just like kind of regional sovereignty.
Yeah, so important. And what are some of the practical ways in which the Bloom Network helps facilitate communities organizing?
Yeah, so one of the main things we do right now, so internationally on a monthly basis, we host a video call. The topic changes each month. That we're kind of like rotate through a set of about 6 themes right now. And we kind of curate a few speakers who are experts on that topic. There's one coming up on April 20th in 2020. If you're watching this in the future, it's already happened. That one is we're having some speakers talk about different kinds of economic practices that will help us, like cooperatives and solidarity economy, circular economy, these sorts of things. But anyway, yeah, so through Bloom, you're likely to learn about a lot of cool things that you've never heard of and meet really amazing people doing them and hopefully do them together. But so we'll host like a video call and have a few experts on. They talk for a very short amount of time because like anyone can go watch TED Talks or YouTube or whatever. But then we mostly for the next 40 minutes dialogue with each other, and because a lot of people will show up who also know things that none of us had heard of before. So we kind of like network across each other better that way and share resources and practices. And then, the easiest way to start a local chapter is to kind of just gather a group of people where you are to participate in that, and then dialogue about, what's going on locally, or, anything we're inspired by that we'd like to kind of start doing here in our community. So that's kind of a basic way to just like help folks kind of act locally, but have the solidarity and access to resources of the more wider global networks.
Yeah,
that's the main. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was good. I was just gonna concur.
Yeah, and then we like after each call we'll do we'll put up a wiki article on our website and a blog about all the stuff we found. So in that way we kind of act like a routing engine almost. So like you might come in to learn about economics, but then you go look at the wiki and then you learn about different kinds of land management stuff you can do, like even in your backyard, to like grow herbs for that weird skin thing you have going on, and you can make tea, and it like eventually helps just kind of window into the mycelial network of all this freaking amazing stuff that's happening all over the planet, but like it's kind of like out of the radar of mainstream media, but it's all there all over the place. We just need to like kind of connect with each other a little bit better.
Yeah, that's definitely part of what I'm doing here with, helping be a voice to help spread all of that and get all this cool stuff happening, because, there's also the arts that are involved with it. Can you go into maybe a little bit how the arts tie into all of this cultural regenerative movement?
Yeah, I mean, you hopefully I would think all the people kind of playing with this game kind of know this with people playing with the P.O.E.M. But arts are such a way. We have so many cultural divisions and kind of mental divisions and stuff like that. And arts are such a holistic, emotional, and spiritual way to connect with each other and see clearly. And artists really bring forth that clarity that a lot of times in our daily lives we become a little bit kind of crystallized in what we do see and don't see, and what we do feel and don't, and are often like crack that open in really beautiful ways and novel ways. So I would say like most of our local organizers are artists of some kind, like there's a bunch of poets involved, which is so fun. And visual artists, graphic designers, musicians, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff we want to do with it. Like we're all volunteer at the moment, but we're working on bringing in some organizational capacity funding to get going. And there's like so much stuff with the arts that we want to do, because I think economically having more ways for artists to share what they're doing in any ways of that, I think there's a lot of possibility for that. There's really cool like blockchain tools for, instead of if your art's shared on the internet and you never see a dime from that, Facebook makes a shit ton of money off of it, but you don't. And so there are ways to like restructure that we're working on, and kind of finding groups who are building technologies to help with that. I mean, that's like a digital version of it, but also when we do local events, Like I said, most of us are ourselves artists, so we'll invite artists to show their work, to share music. You know, P.O.E.M is often kind of a crossover of the festival world a little bit, where transformational arts festivals where people are sharing all kinds of art and ritual together. So that's usually like a huge part of the events that we do. It's like half nerdy, half kind of like intellectual discussion, and half like a really open, artistic, spiritual, non-denominational container to like be real with each other in community. And I don't know, to me art is like one of the most direct ways to do that together and inspire each other and just like see new beautiful things or confront very difficult things. So the arts are just like, for me, like a fundamental medium to connect with each other and be healthy together.
So beautiful. I agree 100%. And that's one of the reasons why I got involved with P.O.E.M Network all the years back, was community and creativity and watching it flourish together. So, let's see. How many P.O.E.M networks, how many groups are there, like, globally?
I was trying to count in my head. I think there's 12 active ones right now at the moment. We were formerly Evolver Network. We were the Evolver spores that were part of Evolver and Reality Sandwich. And just some really weird stuff happened with the people running the brand there, kind of, which kind of like disrupted our communication structure with all those folks. So there's still, I think at the height of Evolver spores, there were over 100 of them in 11 different countries. And those networks are all still there, like those people, the relationships that were formed, the leaders, and have contact info for those people. We haven't yet kind of reached out to everyone and been like, hey, okay, you know, all the local organizers separated from Evolver and have our own thing, and it's like rolling now and set up. So if you want to come participate, here's the invitation. Or if you know someone else who would like be really excited to kind of re-engage with this community of people. So we'll probably do that in the next year here. Kind of put the bat signal, bloom signal, love signal, P.O.E.M out.
Yeah. Totally. Where would you like to you see P.O.E.M going in like the next like 3 to 4 years?
Well, I would really love to see us get our cooperative structure dialed in. We have a kind of have designed a sustainable business model for all the local chapters and our international cooperative to work as a distributed cooperative. So it's not like a centralized structure, but allows us to exchange value with each other in ways that are symbiotic and beneficial. And we're actually applying for an accelerator program right now to build that infrastructure out. Because I think having the kind of financial and legal pathways just sorted out will help direct more resources to all these projects and things. Because it's like not just P.O.E.M Network directly, but each city is connected with, you know, hundreds of organizations and community groups and stuff that are already doing incredible work. And like across the board, a lot of that stuff is like really undercapitalized. So, I mean, this is just my role with P.O.E.M too, is like the business development side of things. So I really would love in the next 3 to 4 years to see us have that flowing, like really have current, you know, community currency, you know, directly financial capital, but also other ways to really nourish each other. I'd love to see us actually start a bioremediation company. So bioremediation is where you use microbes or fungi to clean up toxins in soil. So you can like draw up different biomaterials, kind of like soak up the toxins, and then you can like safely remove them so that you can grow food in an area again. Or, you know, similar practices for restoring bodies of water, because a lot of bodies of water around the world have serious issues from a chemical runoff from our industrial processes and stuff. So that's one thing I want to see happen. And just like a flourishing of, you know, I would love to see hundreds of local P.O.E.M chapters and affiliated groups communicating through this network and through other ones that are kind of adjacent and connected, so that we really are able to connect with each other enough that there is more kind of public visibility of this layer of civilization that exists all over the world. And sort of at the end of 4 years and going onward, I would love to see that sort of thing be much more mainstream. Like, I'd love to see our pop culture be more psychedelic and deep and meaningful and complex. I think people are really ready for that. It's just a matter of us leading that to all together and creating and making social structures that are more nourishing for that flourishing of being.
Yeah, that's everything you just said. I am on board with the 100%, and it's the reason I do everything that I do. So the Bloom Network essentially is kind of helping highlight all of these different practices and groups that are happening, but it's helping kind of create the infrastructure for them to connect more and become more empowered together collectively.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, you were talking about extractive economics versus, and then more like circular economics. Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. So a lot of extractive economic structures are hierarchical, for one thing. So power and money, and who has, specifically with power, who has the ability to say what can happen, are very narrow with extractive structures. So you have populations of people that are like completely disenfranchised from that process, which becomes problematic because there's like reinforcing feedback loops of exploiting the people who don't have power and agency under that kind of rubric of structures. So that's on a leadership level. Whereas regenerative or circular economies in a leadership expression of that, from my perspective, include more diverse and representative voice and power of the different stakeholders who are involved by an industrial activity or a policy process and that kind of thing. And today we have technologies that make it much easier to set up a representative kind of voting and deliberation structures that are just like more sophisticated and deeply informed and like sane. And so that's one layer of it. The other, on a pure like kind of on a resource-based level, extractive is where you're just kind of like one-dimensionally pulling resources out of a thing to make a one-dimensional return of capital. And so you have things like triple bottom lines of people, planet, profit. That's like one step toward it. But you can also have much more like complex matrices of circular bioregional economies and flows of resources. So like cradle to cradle is one like kind of phrase to look into, where, so for example, we're using oil and plastic to make, I actually don't know what styrofoam is made of, but like all our plastic bottles, like styrofoam, like these sorts of things that don't biodegrade for a very long time and have like estrogen or endocrine disrupting things that get into the environment and fish and us and everything and mess with our biology. But it's possible to, for example, instead of styrofoam, you can use mushroom. You can grow mycelium, which is kind of like the fiber, like the fuzzy stuff under the ground of the mushrooms that you see pop up overground. But you can like grow that shit in a lab and make styrofoam. So, insulation and also like packaging materials. So that's an example of a like circular materials economy. Ditto with like fabric. Instead of using polyester, which is petroleum based, you can use natural fibers, you can use natural dyes, you can use plants, you can use different kinds of lichen, you can use mushrooms. to make the entire rainbow of colors, really. And so you can do all that without using chemical dyes. And then if your shirt gets holey, just like bury it in the backyard and it's fine. Like it breaks down, shit eats it, like it will become fuel for some other kind of life to grow. And if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I would really tempted to be a material scientist, because that stuff's all really interesting to me. But that's one aspect of circular economies, is the actual like material production. And then the last thing I'll say is just that circular economies involve like resources circuiting back into the communities and life systems that they are a part of. So for example, if you had an office building that's kind of just like a data center or something, and there's people working in the office and they're like driving from far away, you could actually have different kinds of permaculture stuff installed in and around your building, so you are actually like nourishing the soil. You could change your kind of sales structures so that percentages of your product sales automatically go back to the community where you live, and you don't have to wait for taxes to do that, but you could kind of like directly circuit some of your capital to support the families and communities and land base that your company is able to benefit by existing on. And so there are so many ways that we can shift that I think ultimately will be much more nourishing and inspiring environments for people to live and work in.
Totally. And I feel like what's so potent about what you're talking about is it's not a total burn the system down, and in fact it can plug into what's currently happening. All that it does is require a different perspective, and then implementing that perspective into the systems that are already running, and not having to go and, as my mom would say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. So cool. We'll probably be wrapping this up kind of in the nearest future. What are some of the coolest events that you've witnessed or experienced throughout your years working with the network?
Let's see. Honestly, I really like hikes. Just like really simple, like going for a hike together and being in nature and connecting and having a group of people who are kind of interested in similar things. And those are always fun. We did our first network-wide conference last August in San Francisco. It was called Pollination, and we're excited to do another one. That was like super fascinating. We had an innovation lab that we ran the first kind of test cases for through it. We basically brought together, like, the point of it was to do something that was like a hybrid between a conference, a festival, a think tank, and some kind of church-like thing. I don't know. And there were people there were like VR developers and people who run government consortiums in like the electrical industry, and different kinds of like finance and environmental stuff. There were people who run organizations, there were grassroots leaders, there were lots of artists, marketing people there. I don't know, it's kind of like normally I think in a corporate conference, you might not really find that cross section of people coming together. So that was really fascinating. And beautiful. There's lots of art and music, and we had this catering crew there called Quitchen, the Queer Witch Kitchen, and they source all of their food from local queer farmers, and they make medicine and things like that. So that was amazing to have those folks there. I know in Los Mochis, Mexico, they do this huge, it's like gigantic, trying to remember what it's called in Spanish, biocultural festival. And they just do a bunch of education about like urban farming and health stuff. They do yoga classes, and different kind of micro entrepreneurs come up, and they it's like encouraging local businesses, and a festival to celebrate the city, and the place. And I don't know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a that's really inspiring to see pictures of just people out celebrating and learning and supporting each other, and it really has like longevity infrastructure like throughout the year. They collaborate on building projects and doing smaller events throughout the year, so it really has a kind of integrated relationship with the city at this point. I think they're one of their lead organizers, the mayor of the town, asked him to come work for him because he was like, "You're doing a great job. Will you come like continue this work like actually for the city directly?" So that was an interesting outcome of that. In Baltimore, they do a mushroom festival every year, like all about mushrooms. So they have speakers and art. It's like there's tons of mushroom art. I'm gonna go this year. I'm so excited.
Fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is the best way for people to find out about if they've got something going on regionally, or if there's not, how would they get something going themselves?
The best place to look that up is on our website, bloomnetwork.org, and there's a tab called Local Blooms, and you'll find all the existing ones, and then a link to kind of basically to contact me and Hannah Mitchell, who is the community lead for Bloom Network. She's based in Whangarei, New Zealand. And yeah, we'll get you rolling. You can start one, you can also kind of like use Bloom to piggyback if you have a thing you want to start and kind of just want a little bit more momentum behind it. You can come in with like a specific project you want to do. Or you can just like do a more open-ended thing. So you'll find some resources on kind of how to get started, and depending on if you want to do something at small scale as a potluck or as gung-ho as actually working with some of your local watershed related agencies to just bring more people out to do actions in the world, or plant urban gardens or things like that. Kind of it just depends like how gung-ho you want to get, what your experience is like, and really what's going on in your city that you think would be beneficial. So yeah, that's all there on the website, and it's easy to see like, is there a bloom or not, and then just like do one if you want.
Yeah, waiting for you to bloom. All you got to do, the world's gonna bloom. Just go out there and bloom with us. And so also Bloom can basically, if a local organizer can, if they're already doing events and they like what Bloom is representing, they can just bring Bloom into the branding of what they're doing to help create more awareness around it.
Yeah. We really we handle that with a really wide open arms. Like how we kind of just do that on a case by case basis, figuring out what works, because sometimes people want to just partner with Bloom as a media organization or outreach. Sometimes people it really depends on what the project is. One of the local Blooms in the Bay Area mostly goes by the name Karen Collective, and they do bioregional stewardship in the Bay Area, but they're also a Bloom chapter, because they're doing stuff they're essentially if we did a Bloom there, that's what they'd be doing, and we're in community with each other anyway. Yeah, I would just say reach out if that's something you want to do, and we'll figure out what's the most awesome way to do it.
Yeah, I was just trying to emphasize that it's it's open for you to plug in and ways that work for you.
Totally.
Oh, cool.
It's mushrooms that way. It's consent-based mycelial symbiotic sharing of resources and love and creation.
Yeah, positive resource exchange. That's where it's the future, where we're all working towards. Beautiful. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Magenta, for being here with me and taking your time and sharing all this wonderful information about this incredible network. And as part of the P.O.E.M, the Peace on Earth movement that I am launching, I'm requesting $1 for everybody that participates in the challenge, and 11% of every dollar will be going to support the Bloom Network and helping create these abilities, help this infrastructure grow so we can all create more holistic systems that support everybody from the field worker to the executive boardroom directors. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Magenta. I really appreciate you being here with me so much.
Likewise, thanks so much, Matt. I'm really excited to play with the P.O.E.M and stay in connection.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for all you people out there that have got to enjoy this wonderful interview, you should be. Are you part of the Peaceful Mother Lover campaign? Are you a peaceful revolutionary yet? Because you should perform my hit poem, Seed Bomb of Love. Integrate your energy before you bend down to the ground. Build yourself up with positive love and respect and gratitude for this planet that cares for us, and then draw a peace sign on the earth, making peace on earth. And we can all be part of the poem Peace on Earth movement, Peaceful Mother Lover Challenge. Thank you all so much for being here. We love you all. Blessings. And be sure to check out Bloom Network, bloomnetwork.org. I will be listing all of the links in the comments. Thank you all or the description. Probably, I guess that's not the comment, but comment, say hi. Let's have communication and dialogue and creativity.